Hi. Welcome to this next session, Maximizing Impact, Minimizing Risk, GA4, Looker Studio, and Patron Privacy. Today, we have Julie Oborny, whose pronouns are she, her. She is the Web Services Manager at San Jose Public Library. If you haven't met me yet, my name is Eliana Franco. I'm the Marketing Director at BiblioCommons. Before we start the session, I want to remind you that you can chat and say hello to session attendees or ask any questions for Julie using the chat panel on the right side of your screen. If you'd like, you can turn on a live transcript by clicking on the button located at the bottom of the video stream on the purple bar. And a transcript of this session can be made available upon request. With all that said, I pass the virtual microphone over to Julie. Take it away.
Hello, thank you for the introduction. I am the Web Services Manager for San Jose Public Library in sunny California. It's a little hazy today, but we won't hold it against her. I'm also the current chair of the American Library Association's Intellectual Freedom Committee's Privacy Subcommittee. What does that all mean? I care about actionable insights from data analytics for all of our web properties. And then I also care deeply about patron privacy. And I also deeply believe that the two do not need to be mutually exclusive. All right, let's dive in. Here's what we're going to cover in this short span of time. Library ethics and values. We're just going to have a high-level overview of that, brief review. Then we're going to examine why libraries are different from the private sector, an important distinction when we're talking about data analytics in particular. We're also going to go over why GA4 has great benefits that need to be balanced with privacy considerations. Then I'm going to give you 5 actionable steps you can actually take to improve your practices with GA4. Finally, we'll have a high-level overview of Looker Studio that's going to complement, hopefully you all saw Marie Martin's presentation prior to mine. It's going to complement that because it's going to focus on the privacy angle. Then we'll have a brief Q&A session. Okay. So library ethics and values. Public library websites at a minimum typically track website visits that they have. That's the basic data that's going to show our value, especially to our supporters and our funders, whoever those funders might be. For me, it's typically the state library. That's like the basic bit of information. However, with modern tools like GA4, we get to access deeper insights about our website's engagement. These insights, when utilized thoughtfully, can really elevate the services that we have to offer. But as we move forward in this digital age, I want us to think about that anchor that's going to hold us steadfast, and that's our profound commitment to user privacy. It's not merely a best practice, it's actually a guiding principle that's explicitly articulated in Article 3 of our Professional Code of Ethics from the American Library Association, and Article 7 of the American Library Association's Library Bill of Rights. Now, in privacy and interpretation of the Library Bill of Rights, I think they really say it better than I ever could, and that is privacy is essential to the exercise of free speech, free thought, and free association. Lack of privacy and confidentiality chills users' choices, thereby suppressing access to ideas. The possibility of surveillance, whether direct or through access to records of speech, research, and exploration, undermines a democratic society. So I actually urge everyone here to revisit these seminal documents. What's written has been thoughtfully written to be clear and shareable to your stakeholders. And they just far surpass anything I could possibly express. So I just want to make a plea for you all to take a look at that. Okay, so we've talked about our foundational ethics and values, right? Now we're going to look a little bit more closely at data analytics and why our approach to data analytics is different from the private sector. So at first glance, you might ask, how different can libraries be from other organizations when it comes to data usage, right? Like especially number of clicks, right? But when you look closely, the distinction is going to become clear. So private industries primarily operate with profit as a driving force. Their data collection often serves marketing goals, aiming to build detailed consumer profiles to enhance sales and engagement. And that's just translates to money, right? For those of you that have ever set up Google Analytics before at a greater depth, this might be like glaringly obvious to you the moment you get to the sections on conversions and key performance indicators, which is a bunch of jargony terms, but basically when you look at the out of the box dollar signs as your metrics in those sections, you might have just like instinctively known that many of these analytics tools are not optimized for our needs. So in contrast to private industry, libraries stand as pillars of public service. Our core mission revolves around free access to information and learning, community engagement, spaces, services, and so much more. I'm reminded, like I recently listened to the Ezra Klein Show podcast that had our ALA president, and she was talking about some of the libraries that they're offering cake pans and carpet cleaners for a free checkout. And then I also just think about the unseen or unspoken promise that we give to our customers of peace for anybody that's seeking respite from whatever's troubling them from, outside our library spaces. Those things are free. While data aids us in enhancing user experience, our primary objective is not profit, it's public service. It's really essential to keep that distinction in mind. And when a library collects data, so the purpose is to better serve our users. It's not to serve any sort of bottom line. In contrast, when a private company is collecting that data, that's exactly what they're doing. They're trying to increase their market share. They're trying to, improve their bottom line, and that's okay for them. That's their objective. That's how they can exist. But that shouldn't be our approach. So summing all that up, our tools and data might look similar. The intent and use are not. All right. So a few more details about the privacy implications of using GA4. That's the web analytics tool that we have available to us with our BiblioCommons products. So that's the focus I'm going to have here. So Google Analytics 4, that's the new tracking code that replaced the universal analytics tracking code. It makes several privacy improvements. You can read a bunch of articles about the privacy improvements. However, there are some additional considerations that you still need to make when you're setting up your GA4 tracking code, or if you're trying to optimize for privacy. The benefit, it's going to provide a gateway to understanding user behavior in unprecedented details. And for libraries, this can be an advantage and a challenge. Benefits would be user behavior insights. We can better understand how users interact with our website. And that means that we can refine what we have to offer and how we offer it based on those real user interactions. Sometimes it might not be immediately clear. You might have a data insight and then you have to do a little bit of UX testing, but that's your gateway to uncovering some of those opportunities for improvement on your site. The other benefit, enhanced service delivery, I kind of already covered this, but knowing what your users are searching for and which resources they use most, that can actually guide some of our purchasing and resource allocation decisions. And then it can also lead to our users to the resources and services that we have to offer. It can better help guide them when we make those adjustments. Now, on the flip side, GA4 can offer those unparalleled insights, especially if there's a lot more out of the box that that's easier to set up than it was in Universal Analytics, but there are still some serious privacy considerations that libraries in particular need to address. First one, cookie-based tracking. GA4 uses a combination of these, but there is still first-party cookies that are used to monitor user sessions and interactions. And then we have cross-platform tracking. So users can actually be tracked across various devices and platforms, which means you get a comprehensive overview of their behavior, but that also means GA4 is following them across their devices, and they might not expect to be followed. Some potential oversteps that we need to be aware of, behavior patterns. So this is some of the out-of-the-box stuff that's really cool with GA4. My favorite, something that we had to set up in a custom way was like outbound links, outbound link clicks. So events-based tracking model can capture granular details of user interactions like specific button clicks, scrolls, and other micro-level interactions. But that level of detail can risk overstepping boundaries by collecting more information than what is ethically appropriate for libraries. So for me, for my library system, some of the things I think about are video engagement and form interaction, which is why we haven't turned that on for our library. The thing to ask yourself is, do you really need that level of detail? Are you really going to use that data to actually gain any actionable insights? And is it ethically appropriate for you to collect that data in the first place? What are you compromising as a result? Next thing, Google Signals. By enabling Google Signals, libraries might inadvertently delve into demographic data and cross-device behaviors that can be seen as a breach of user privacy. Linking to Google Ads. When libraries link GA4 to Google Ads, this allows targeting of ads based on library website usage. Your library is actively then contributing to the surveillance ecosystem that is Google when you turn this feature on, when you make that link or that connection. Ad targeting. So leveraging GA4's audience creation tools for targeted advertising based on library interactions could actually be considered a breach of user privacy, and it could compromise the library's commitment to neutrality. So by influencing users' digital experiences outside the library space through ads tailored to their library behavior, we risk violating our foundational ethics. Finally, data retention. So the length of time GA4 retains data can be a concern. You have like two options, I think, right now. Libraries, my recommendation is adjust those settings to ensure data isn't stored for the longer amount of time. I think that's like 14 months. The lowest current setting is 2 months, and I encourage you all to just reduce it to that duration. It can impact your explorations and funnel reports, so you have to be a little bit more diligent in monitoring those and determining what types of actionable insights you want for your 2 month duration if you're wanting information at that level of detail. But the time period is not going to impact your aggregated reports. Okay. Just final thought here when it comes to these privacy concerns. We're stewards. I have a hard time saying that sometimes. As stewards of public trust, libraries need to be especially discerning when navigating GA4's extensive features. All right, so what are some things you can do even today, or maybe next week or in a couple weeks when you are like, okay, I'm finally going to wrap my head around GA4 and I haven't set it up yet, right? First step, disable Google Signals. If you turned it on with the setup assistant when you initially switched over to GA4, go ahead and turn it off. If you have not set up your GA4 or haven't set it up fully, just never turn it on. that means you will not be contributing to that surveillance ecosystem that I mentioned, and you won't be getting that detailed demographic data. But we don't need that detailed demographic data, or we shouldn't. That's one of the trade-offs that we have in making sure that we're balancing our privacy values and ethics. I also, while you're in there, so I have in this slide, which I'll share the slides, it kind of shows you where you can go to disable that if you already have it turned on. But while you're in there, there's a little section on ads personalization. I would just disable those for all regions as well. Next, avoid linking Google Ads. We already went into detail about that. Place to get to is admin property, Google Ad links. Just best practices with our vendors is that we don't want them to do target advertising to our customers. So why would we engage in that practice? Next, you're going to want to review your enhanced measurements. If you already set your stuff up, go back to that list and review what you checked on and ask yourself, is this really something that my library needs, or are we being too invasive here? Or the other thing is, if you really have no use case for having that, and you just have it because you're like, well, we might need it later, you're probably not going to need it later. I have set up plenty of like Looker Studio reports for folks that it doesn't have like the, some of the granular detail concerns with the enhanced measurement, but like, our stakeholders that access those reports, a lot of times they might ask for something and we might honor that as long as it doesn't violate privacy, but are they really looking at it? I've had some of them tell me, no, I really didn't need that. So be conscientious about what you're collecting, why you're collecting it, and if it's really going to provide value to improving service for your customers. Okay. And really simple to get there. You go admin, property, data stream, and then enhanced measurements. And then you click the little gear icon, and then you should see all the options that you have. I'm not saying all of them are evil. Not all of them are. All of them have some sort of use case. For example, the easiest example I can think of is the outbound link clicks to vendor resources, so that we know, okay, how are your users getting to these vendor resources? Do we need to change how we're marketing them, that kind of thing. So there is some useful information there, but you just have to, ask those questions. Next, set data retention periods. We already went over this. My recommendation is 2 months. You go to admin, property, data settings, data retention. And then finally, educate and inform your users. If you don't have a privacy policy, there are very few libraries that don't anymore. There's I can't remember what the tool is, but there's a person that has like cataloged pretty much all the library systems, and there's a very, very small percentage that doesn't have these. But if you don't, make one. That's a big ask, and there's plenty of resources for helping you make that. But then also, I highly encourage you to have a vendor privacy policy page where you're linking to all of your vendors' privacy policies, including these third-party tools that you're using like Google Analytics. And then all in that section, don't just link to the policy, but also link to the opt-out options, so that they have a quick way. They don't have to search for themselves. If they want to opt out, they just click the link and then they can opt out. Okay, Looker Studio. I'm gonna try to breeze through this. I think we're doing okay on time though. So we're moving closer to the conclusion of this discussion on GA4 and privacy, but I do want to touch on a tool that can enhance your data analysis capabilities, particularly because it's just much more, it's much easier for your stakeholders to be able to interact with it, especially it's a lot more visual, and you can lock down their access so that there's only a certain segment that they're looking at. So that's Looker Studio. Hopefully you all caught Marie Martin's session. If you didn't, please review the recording. She went over custom data in Google Analytics, particularly GA4, because it's just a different beast compared to universal analytics. There's helpful documentation on getting started with setting up your GA4 account with custom data as well. So benefits on using Looker Studio: you get deep insights, customized dashboards, and collaboration. What do I mean by that? Deep insights, Looker Studio paired with GA4 lets us dive a little bit deeper into the data in a more visual and understandable chunks. So you're not like trying to use the out of the box stuff in Google Analytics dashboards. It's not just about numbers, it's about understanding users and then understanding them better, and then optimizing our services and how we display and provide our information about what we have to offer. So it's really going to help you make more informed decisions that are going to directly benefit our patrons. Customized dashboards. So not all data is going to be relevant to all stakeholders. Looker Studio lets you build those customizable dashboards, and then that makes you can make sure that you can really focus on what truly matters to those stakeholders. Like I have different site sections where there are like content owners for those site sections, and they just have their own specific dashboard, right? Or their own specific report. It just makes it a lot easier to be able to go over details with them, because, and then if they have a data question, it's self-serve, they can look it up themselves. It's really going to help eliminate that noise and allow for clarity. Okay, collaborative analysis. So collaborative decision making is really going to build in that accountability with your content stakeholders. With Looker Studio, you have teams that can work together on the reports, and then that's going to help ensure those diverse perspectives and just a more holistic understanding of your library's digital presence. And when I say accountability, I mean, if they want to have a decision about how certain content is displayed or worded, that's your opportunity to be like, okay, let's measure this together. And then they are able to look at that data as well. You can also set up emails to like have that data sent to them periodically. So then the onus is on them to actually look at that data regularly. Okay, all those benefits, we do have some privacy considerations though. Some of those would be data granularity, data sharing, and data sources. So for data granularity, diving deep can be really insightful, but we have to tread carefully. We always need to ensure we're not overstepping into areas that might jeopardize user privacy or reveal more than what's ethically appropriate. Examples of that would be like, maybe you have a really niche section of your site or a really niche collection or resource, and there's only going to be like specific users. Like I think of some high school programs that we have available, and you know, if that was paired with some other data, we could potentially identify users. So need to be mindful of that. Data sharing. So collaboration is great, but it can be a double-edged sword. That means you have to be really stringent about who has access to that data, and then regularly review those permissions, making sure that the data remains in safe hands. And then finally, your data sources. And this is maybe a larger discussion, but it's definitely a very important one. So if you start integrating various data streams, be cautious. Combining data sets can sometimes unintentionally lead to identification. So you just need to keep in mind to prioritize user privacy. Good rule of thumb is that if you've got personally identifiable information, or if there are enough sensitive data points to identify a user in a data set, when combined with another data set like GA4, just don't combine it. Good rule of thumb for most data dashboards beyond GA4 as well. And it's also a good rule of thumb even for like survey creation. That's like a whole different session, and I won't go into detail about that, but just be mindful of the more data points that you connect, the easier it's going to be to identify users. Overall, Looker Studio is going to offer you some powerful capabilities, but let's just all remember our foundational commitment, and that's our patrons' trust that their information is private and they're free. They're truly free to inquire openly and with privacy in mind. So we have to leverage these tools responsibly and always keep our library values at the center. All right, I have one bonus. I didn't put it in the agenda. Very short though. I encourage you all to visit the American Library Association's privacy site section. You can just do ALA privacy and it'll pop up as well. Two areas I highly recommend that you explore are the privacy guidelines and checklists, especially if you're considering maybe doing a privacy audit or maybe a small scale privacy audit, just getting started to improve your privacy practices overall. There's also a section specifically devoted to vendors. And then the privacy field guides is a really great one for being able to do something quickly. And so, yes, I just highly recommend that you take a look at both of those. And then now we're open for questions, I think.
Yeah, Julie, thank you so much. The one slide with the 5 things to do for user privacy in GA4 was so great. I'm sure that a lot of people took screenshots of that. We will make the recording available as well as the slides. We are at a time though, so if anyone has any questions, please add them to the chat and feed loop, and Julie will head in there and provide any answers. Thank you everybody for attending, and thank you, Julie.